The sun filtered through the branches, but its light brought no comfort. A little girl stood in the middle of the forest, her voice trembling with desperation. "Help! Someone, please!" Only the rustling of leaves and the cracking of branches answered her. And then, from behind the trees, he appeared, a massive bear. His powerful figure glistened in the sunlight, his eyes fixed intently on her. She froze, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out all other sounds around her. What do you think the bear wanted? Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel to find out what happens next in this incredible story. The little girl's heart raced with excitement as her eyes locked on her favorite gummies, sitting on the bottom shelf in their shiny red package. She tugged on her mother's sleeve, her voice filled with eager anticipation. "Mom, please. Can I have these? Just one bag." Her mother barely glanced at the package before shaking her head. "Not today, sweetheart. We've already spent enough." "But you always say that," the girl exclaimed, her tone shifting from pleading to frustrated. She clutched the bag tighter, as if holding onto it might change her mother's mind. Her father, pushing the cart a few steps ahead, turned back and added, "Listen to your mom. You don't need candy right now." The girl's face turned red with anger and disbelief. "It's not fair," she shouted, stamping her foot on the tile floor. "You never let me have anything I want." Her parents exchanged a weary look, clearly unwilling to engage further. "Come on," her mother said calmly but firmly. "We're leaving." The girl's chest heaved with frustration as they walked away, leaving her standing alone in the candy aisle. To her, their refusal wasn't just about the gummies, it felt like a betrayal, proof that they didn't care about what mattered to her. Clutching her little fists, she stomped after them, her mind racing with angry thoughts. "They'll see," she thought to herself. "I'll show them. They don't get to decide everything." By the time they left the store, her disappointment had turned into quiet determination. She wouldn't let this go. She was going to prove to them that she could make her own choices even if it meant doing something she'd never dared before. The car ride home was filled with an awkward silence, broken only by the occasional hum of the engine and the murmur of her parents discussing dinner plans. But the little girl sat in the back seat, arms crossed tightly over her chest, her small face set in a scowl. She replayed the scene at the store in her mind, each refusal from her parents like a needle pricking at her pride. Why couldn't they just listen? She thought. Her fingers drummed angrily against her knees. They always said no, no candy, no staying up late, no fun. It wasn't fair. As the car rolled through the quiet suburban streets, an idea began to take shape in her mind. At first, it was just a spark, born of frustration. But as she stared out the window, watching the trees sway gently in the breeze, that spark grew into a full-fledged plan. If they don't care about what I want, maybe I don't need them, she thought. Her eyes flicked toward the edge of the forest, where the sunlight filtered through the trees. The woods looked peaceful, almost magical, like something out of her favorite storybooks. By the time they pulled into the driveway, she had made her decision. She would run away, not forever, just long enough to make them miss her. She'd show them how wrong they were to ignore her feelings. "I'm going to my room," she announced sharply as she climbed out of the car, not waiting for her parents' response. Inside, she threw her small backpack on the bed and began stuffing it with essentials, or at least what seemed essential to her 8-year-old mind: a flashlight, a water bottle, her favorite stuffed animal, and a notebook with a glittery cover. She hesitated for a moment, then added a snack bar she had hidden from an earlier grocery trip. Her heart raced with a mix of anger and excitement as she slipped on her sneakers and quietly opened her bedroom window. She knew the way to the woods, she'd seen it 100 times during walks with her family. It wasn't far, just across the field at the back of their house. As she climbed out and set off toward the trees, the afternoon sun warmed her face, and a sense of independence bloomed in her chest. "They'll regret treating me like a baby," she thought. "When they can't find me, they'll wish they'd listened." The forest loomed closer, the trees swaying gently as if inviting her in. She felt a thrill as she stepped over the threshold of the woods, the cool shade enveloping her. She was on an adventure now, like the brave characters in her favorite stories. Her parents wouldn't find her until she was ready to come back. And by then, she thought with satisfaction, they'd finally understand how much she mattered. She walked confidently, clutching the straps of her backpack. Every few steps, she stopped to inspect something, a shiny rock, a fallen leaf, or a crooked branch. She imagined herself as an explorer, discovering uncharted lands. I bet they're wondering where I am already, she muttered, her voice breaking the forest's quiet. She imagined her parents searching for her, worrying about what they'd done wrong. The thought filled her with a sense of pride. This will teach them to listen to me. But as she wandered deeper, the trees grew taller and closer together, their thick branches blocking out more of the sunlight. The patches of gold on the ground faded, replaced by cooler shadows. The girl didn't notice right away, she was too caught up in her newfound independence. A squirrel darted across her path, and she giggled, trying to follow it with her eyes as it scrambled up a tree. The forest felt like a playground, filled with endless possibilities. She didn't need her parents to tell her where to go or what to do. Still, the deeper she ventured, the quieter it became. The chirping birds seemed farther away now, their songs swallowed by the growing density of the trees. The soft rustle of the wind turned into an eerie whisper, and the path she thought she was following had disappeared, replaced by uneven ground and gnarled roots. The girl paused, glancing around. The forest no longer looked like the inviting place it had been when she first stepped inside. The trees seemed taller, darker, their twisted shapes casting strange shadows. She brushed the feeling aside, determined to prove to herself and her parents that she could handle this. "I'm not scared," she said out loud, as if speaking the words would make them true. But as she took another step forward, her confidence began to waver. She took a step, then another, each one heavier than the last. The ground was uneven, covered in roots and moss that made her stumble. Every crackle of a twig beneath her sneakers echoed like a gunshot in the stillness. "Mom? Dad," she called out, her voice shaky but loud. It bounced off the trees and came back to her, eerily hollow. No answer. She tried again, louder this time. "Mom! Dad! I'm here!" Still nothing. The silence pressed down on her, heavy and unrelenting. She tried to remember how far she had come, how long she had been walking, but her thoughts were a blur. She couldn't even be sure she was heading in the right direction anymore. Panic began to set in, clawing at her chest like an icy hand. Her breaths came faster, her small frame trembling as she realized the truth: she was lost. Completely, utterly lost. The trees seemed to loom closer, their twisted branches reaching out like claws. The once distant rustle of leaves now sounded louder, as though the forest were alive, watching her, waiting. Every crack of a twig, every whisper of the wind, made her whip her head around, expecting to see something or someone. "I shouldn't have come here," she murmured, tears welling in her eyes. Her defiance from earlier felt so far away now, swallowed by fear. She wanted to go home, to hear her parents' voices, even if they were scolding her. She tried to calm herself, pressing her hands against her cheeks. Think, she muttered. She glanced up at the patches of sky visible through the trees. The sunlight was dimming, slipping into the orange hues of late afternoon. She didn't have much time before it got dark. She walked faster, her steps hurried and uneven. But the more she walked, the less familiar everything became. The forest seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction, the trees growing denser, the air cooler. She tripped over a root and fell to her knees, dirt smearing her palms. Hot tears rolled down her cheeks as she scrambled back to her feet. "Mom! Dad! Please," she screamed, her voice cracking. The forest didn't answer. Her small shoulders heaved with sobs as she clutched her backpack tighter. She felt so small, so insignificant against the vast, unyielding wilderness. And for the first time, she realized that her adventure wasn't a game. It was real, and she was alone. "Help me!" The forest swallowed her cries, offering no response but the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. The silence was unbearable, heavy, as though the woods themselves were holding their breath. Her chest heaved as she looked around, her small body trembling with fear. And then she heard it, a sharp crack of a branch snapping nearby. Her breath caught in her throat, her wide eyes darting toward the sound. It wasn't distant or faint, it was close, too close. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end as the sound came again, followed by the crunch of something heavy moving through the underbrush. "Hello," she called out, her voice quivering. She took a step back, her sneakers sinking slightly into the soft earth. The movement grew louder, the crackling of branches mixed with the unmistakable sound of something big pushing through the dense foliage. The girl froze, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. Her mind raced with possibilities. A person? An animal? And then, through the thick curtain of trees, it appeared. The bear stood motionless, its large, dark eyes fixed on the girl. She felt as though the entire world had shrunk to just the two of them, the forest around her fading into silence. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she tried to process what was happening. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't growling. It was simply standing there, watching her. Her mind screamed at her to run, but her legs felt like they were rooted in the ground. She clutched her backpack straps tightly, her fingers trembling. She had imagined bears to be terrifying monsters, all roaring and teeth, but this one seemed calm, almost thoughtful. The bear tilted its head slightly, as if studying her. Then it let out a low huff, the sound deep and soft, more like a sigh than a growl. The girl's terror began to shift, her breathing slowing as she realized the bear wasn't behaving aggressively. She blinked, her heart still pounding, and took in the details of the creature before her. Its fur, dark and streaked with gold, shimmered faintly in the patches of sunlight filtering through the trees. Its massive paws pressed into the earth without a sound, and its eyes, calm and unblinking, were full of an intelligence she hadn't expected. The bear took a single step forward, its movements slow and deliberate. The ground seemed to tremble under its weight, but it didn't feel threatening. Instead, it felt measured, almost cautious. "Don't hurt me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The bear's ears flicked at the sound of her voice, but it didn't react otherwise. It glanced at the ground, sniffed the air, and then looked back at her. The girl's fear wavered, replaced by a strange sense of curiosity. It didn't look like it wanted to hurt her. If anything, it seemed patient. It turned its massive head toward a cluster of bushes nearby, then took another step forward, sniffing at the ground. It moved with a calm confidence, its body language so unexpected that the girl found herself relaxing, just slightly. When the bear glanced back at her again, she felt her grip on her backpack loosen. Her legs, which had been frozen in fear, began to shift. She took a small, hesitant step forward, her curiosity now overpowering her instinct to flee. The bear let out another quiet huff, almost as if acknowledging her. It turned again, heading deeper into the forest with slow, deliberate steps, glancing back at her once more as if waiting for her to follow. She didn't know why, but something in her heart told her the bear wasn't leading her into danger. For the first time since she'd entered the forest, she felt a flicker of calm. Against all logic, she took another step forward, following the massive creature into the trees. The bear moved through the forest with steady, deliberate steps, its massive frame navigating the dense underbrush as if it had walked the path 1,000 times before. The girl followed, her small feet struggling to keep up, but her fear had faded into something quieter, almost reverent. Every so often, the bear would glance back at her, its dark eyes calm and watchful, as if reassuring her that she wasn't alone. She still clutched her backpack straps tightly, but her breaths had steadied. For reasons she couldn't fully explain, she trusted this creature, this unlikely guide. The forest seemed less menacing now. The trees that had loomed so large earlier felt less oppressive, the shadows less dark. Even the rustling of leaves in the wind seemed to carry a gentler tone. The girl's steps grew more confident, her gaze no longer darting nervously at every sound. After what felt like an eternity, the trees began to thin. She caught glimpses of sunlight breaking through the canopy, the golden light stretching across the forest floor. Her heart quickened. She could see the edge of the woods now, where the trees gave way to the open field behind her house. The bear stopped at the tree line, its massive paws sinking slightly into the soft earth. It turned to face her, its eyes meeting hers one last time. The girl froze, unsure what to do. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The bear let out a low huff, its ears twitching. Then, as quietly as it had appeared, it turned and lumbered back into the forest. The girl watched it go, the shadow swallowing its golden streaked fur until it disappeared entirely. She stood there for a moment, staring after it, before turning toward the field. Her house was visible in the distance, its windows glowing faintly in the setting sun. Tears welled in her eyes as she broke into a run, her small legs carrying her across the open space toward home. When she reached the back door, her parents were already outside, their faces etched with worry. "Where have you been?" her mother cried, pulling her into a tight hug. "I'm sorry," the girl said, her voice muffled against her mother's shoulder. She clung to her parents, the warmth of their embrace melting away the last of her fear. "I got lost." Her father knelt beside her, brushing dirt from her cheek. "We were so scared," he said gently. "I was scared too," she admitted, her voice trembling. She paused, thinking of the bear, its calm gaze and the way it had guided her back. "But something helped me. Someone." Her parents exchanged puzzled looks but didn't press further. The girl didn't know how to explain what had happened or even if they'd believe her. What mattered was that she was home. That night, as she sat at the dinner table with her parents, the argument from earlier seemed so small, so meaningless. She realized how much they cared for her, even when she didn't get her way. And the forest? It wasn't just a place of fear anymore. It was a reminder of something larger, of unexpected kindness, of the connection between all living things, and of the strange and beautiful way the world sometimes worked. What lesson did you take away from this story? Have you ever had an experience that changed your perspective? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring and unforgettable stories like this one.